Desiree's Dream. Chapter 2. A Companion and Friend. Desi made her way back to her makeshift shelter in the alleyway. A sense of foreboding crept over her as the twilight cast long shadows that danced menacingly in the gentle breeze. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay, filling her with unease. With weary movements, she tidied the area around her box, sweeping away the debris and dust that had accumulated during her absence. It was arduous labor. Dusk had fallen by the time she finished, and exhaustion weighed heavily on her small frame. Candy, her faithful companion, rubbed her head affectionately against Desi's torso, offering comfort and companionship as Desi lay down, her body aching. Soon, she drifted into a deep, peaceful slumber, with Candy and Beauregard keeping watch. The tranquility of the night was suddenly shattered by a piercing sound reverberating through the alleyway. Desi's eyes snapped open, her heart pounding in her chest. An unseen presence lurked in the darkness, sending shivers down Desi's spine. She could sense something amiss, her breath quickening as she inched further into the confines of her box, seeking comfort in its familiar surroundings. Her hand reached out, grasping for the large stick that offered solace and protection. Before she could grasp it, a hulking figure emerged from the shadows. A rough hand shot in, grabbing her by the hair and yanking her from her sanctuary with brutal force. Beauregard, ever loyal, tried to defend her, sinking his teeth into the intruder's hand. But the prowler was relentless, flinging Beauregard down the alley with a yelp. Desi kicked and scratched, her nails clawing at the air as she hurled through the darkness. Her petite body collided with the brick wall, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. She crumpled to the ground, her bruised and battered form rolling under a nearby wagon, offering a fleeting refuge. Through her haze of pain, she whispered a wish to be a fairy and then surrendered to the comforting darkness that enveloped her. The sinister man went through Desi's box, grabbing what he could and turning to leave, only to kick at the wooden structure, shattering Desi's home. Alerted by the ungodly commotion, Joe rushed to the scene, his wooden peg leg tapping against the cobblestones. Once filled with determination, the veteran's eyes now reflected concern as he witnessed the aftermath. But as he attempted to intervene, the criminal delivered a swift kick, sending Joe's peg leg flying. The crack of wood against bone reverberated, leaving Joe crumpled on the ground, a painful reminder of the intruder's cruelty. As dawn broke, harsh light filled the alley, causing Desi to stir. Every muscle protested as she forced herself to move, emerging from her hiding place with great effort. She returned to her spot, only to find it ravaged. Torn and dirty dresses lay strewn about. Her possessions, cherished reminders of life before, were shattered and broken, their remnants scattered across the ground. But the actual cruelty was the theft of her fairy book, a treasured escape from her harsh reality. Desi's heart skipped a beat as a faint moan pierced the eerie silence. Her eyes darted toward the sound, and what she saw froze her in place. There, amidst the dark shadows of the alley, sat Joe, his back leaning against the grimy brick wall. His wooden peg leg lay a few feet away, starkly contrasting the lifelessness that now enveloped him. Blood trickled down from a gash on his forehead, mixing with the sweat that glistened on his pale skin. Each labored breath he took was a soft, rasping sound in the quiet night. Overwhelmed by a wave of grief, Desi's legs gave way. She crumpled to the ground, her tears falling freely as her shoulders shook with silent sobs. The narrow alley amplified her cries, the sound reverberating off the walls, a haunting lament that seemed to linger. As her tears began to subside, Desi's resolve took their place. She wiped her eyes, knowing she had to stay strong, to take action. It was an effort to get up. She stood and made her way to the alley's entrance, her eyes scanning the deserted street. The moonlight cast an eerie glow, revealing no one in sight. With a deep breath, she turned back towards Joe, only to spot a group of soldiers in the distance, their figures illuminated by the flickering flames from the nearby blast. Hope ignited within her. Desi's voice, hoarse from crying, called out to them. She waved her arms frantically, and her efforts were rewarded as the soldiers altered their course, making their way towards her. Leading them to Joe, she felt relieved, knowing help had finally arrived. Desi watched as the soldiers carefully lifted Joe onto the wheelbarrow, his body limp, a stark contrast to the vibrant soul she knew. With each step, their footsteps echoed on the pavement, the rhythmic squeak of the wheel cutting through the silent night. "Stay strong, Joe," Desi whispered, her voice hoarse with childish emotion. "I'll be here, waiting for you, old friend." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. The night air carried the scent of smoke and destruction, a stark reminder of the unfolding tragedy. Desi's heart mirrored the wreckage around her, once vibrant and full of life, now reduced to a heap of emotions. She stepped, her patched shoes crunching on broken glass, the sound uncomfortably loud in the quiet aftermath. Desi stood still, her body aching, but her mind refused to accept the comfort of rest. The rising moon above bathed the ruined landscape in a silvery glow, transforming the scene into a surreal painting. She felt like a mere spectator, witnessing the aftermath of a battle, her life's canvas now marred by tragedy. Desi's mind kept coming back to Joe, knowing she had only one thing to do. She gathered her things and headed in the direction of the soldier. She walked with purpose, her pets by her side. The Mobile General Hospital, a stately structure with columns reminiscent of a bygone era, was a beacon of hope amidst the devastation. Survivors, their clothes tattered and faces etched with anguish, huddled on the steps of nearby houses, untouched by the blast's wrath. Residents, their kindness shining through the darkness, offered water and first aid, creating a makeshift sanctuary. Desi yearned to rest, to surrender to the fatigue weighing her down, but the thought of Joe kept her moving. The hospital bustled with activity, starkly contrasting the quiet despair outside. Doctors and nurses, in stained scrubs, rushed to meet the endless stream of patients. The sound of footsteps and desperate voices filled the air. Her loyal companion, Beauregard, trailed behind Desi as she ascended the steps, each one a small victory. Curious as ever, Candy stayed behind, sniffing at the unfamiliar surroundings. Inside, the hospital resembled a chaotic painting, each stroke representing a life in turmoil. Stretchers, draped in white sheets, lined the hallways, some bearing silent witnesses to the tragedy. Desi's heart sank as she realized each sheet concealed a life lost. She navigated this somber procession until she reached a nurse, her steady hand recording the names of the fallen. "Joe Kane," Desi spoke, her voice laced with desperation. "Where can I find him?" The nurse paused, her pen hovering over the paper, and at that moment, Desi held her breath, praying for a sign, a glimmer of hope of finding Joe. The air was tense as Desi stood amidst the chaos, waiting for an answer, the sense of chloroform and sweat lingering in the air. Suddenly, a voice, high-pitched and reminiscent of a cartoon character, pierced the bustling atmosphere. "Bring me my leg and crutch. I demand to leave this place." Desi's curiosity got the better of her, and she spun around. Joe sat on the edge of a worn stretcher, his legs casually swinging over the side as if he owned the place. His initial expression was that of a grizzled warrior, battle-weary and ready to fight, but as their eyes met, a transformation occurred. She darted towards him, her heart racing, and wrapped her arms around his leg with affection and concern. The warmth of his skin contrasted with the coolness of the metal stretcher. Her cheek pressed against his leg, marking it with a crimson streak from the blood that had not yet dried. He gently lifted her chin, his rough fingers surprisingly gentle against her skin, and a smile cracked through his rugged beard. Well, if it isn't my lucky charm. What wind blew you in, my dear lass?" Joe's voice was like a warm blanket, comforting amid chaos. Desi's voice trembled, her words laced with worry. "Joe, it's me, I've been searching for you. Are you injured?" With a tenderness that belied his rough exterior, he assured her, "Fear not, young one. I'm merely eager to leave this place. Fetch my peg leg and my trusty crutch, would you? I yearn to return home once they patch me up." Without hesitation, Desi sprinted with purpose, weaving through the hospital corridors, her footsteps echoing against the wooden floors. The sound of her determined strides filled the air as she embarked on her mission to retrieve Joe's belongings. As the day drew to a close, Desi found herself back in the familiar confines of the alley after fetching Joe's crutch and peg leg. She leaned against the cool brick wall, taking a moment to process the events of the day, her mind filled with the image of Joe's smile and the weight of his leg in her embrace. Exhaustion pulled at her like a heavy blanket, and Desi finally allowed herself to sink to the ground. The ruins of her home surrounded her, the once familiar now foreign and cold. She gazed up at the moon, its pale light offering little comfort, while her world lay in pieces around her. Then, she felt a gentle touch on her face, the dampness of a loving tongue. Loyal and protective, Beauregard hovered over her, concerned eyes gazing at her beloved companion. Desi reached out to pet him, her body aching, a comforting presence amid chaos. But Candy was nowhere to be found, and the dryness of her mouth, coupled with the crust of dirt, sweat, and blood on Desi's skin, prompted her to seek the river. The air was thick with the scent of burned wood as Desi dragged her weary body through the debris-laden streets, each step a battle against the pain that radiated through her limbs. The full moon guided her, reflecting off the broken glass and twisted metal. She watched in horror as people dug into the rubble, trying to find survivors. Desi yearned for the river, its calm waters promising relief from the agony that racked her body. As she neared the riverbank, a majestic oak tree came into view, its sprawling branches reaching towards the heavens. This ancient guardian of the river offered shade and sanctuary, a haven in this desolate landscape. Desi's body cried out for rest, and she succumbed to its call, collapsing beneath the tree's protective embrace. Time became an abstract concept as she drifted in and out of consciousness, her thoughts a blur of pain and fatigue. Beauregard, her loyal companion, nestled close, his warm breath soothing her battered body. A sharp pain roused Desi from her slumber. Her vision was hazy, but as she blinked away the fog, she saw an angelic face in the moonlight. Freckles danced across the boy's face, a celestial map of innocence, while his fiery red hair framed eyes that shone with empathy. His warm, genuine smile disarmed her, and she felt an immediate connection, a trust born of shared vulnerability. "Are you all right?" His voice was like a soft breeze, gentle and comforting. Desi's throat was parched, her voice barely a whisper. I think so." Her hand went to her forehead, her fingers brushing against the damp cloth he had placed there. Suspicion clouded her thoughts, a defense mechanism against potential threats. She sat up, the sudden movement causing a jolt of pain. "Who are you? Why are you here?" The boy's eyes, dark pools of sincerity, held her gaze. "Peace, I mean you no harm. I found you, and you needed help." Desi's eyes went to her dirty and torn dress, a testament to her harrowing journey. I don't remember. I think I ran into something." Laughter, a rich, warm sound, filled the air, and the boy's eyes sparkled with amusement. "A horse, perhaps. A rather large one at that." Desi's eyes narrowed, but the boy's expression was open and genuine. He took a step back, his palms raised in surrender. "My apologies, I meant no offense. I'm here to aid you if you let me." Intrigue won over caution, and Desi stepped closer, studying the boy. "I am Catherine Desiree." "Desi, to my friends." "What do they call you?" "Alex," he replied, his smile infectious, as he reached out a hand in a gesture of friendship. "Alexander, if you must know the whole of it." Desi's laughter, musical and light, filled the air. A name as bright as your spirit, Alex. A name to remember. Alex paused, searching for an answer. But before he could reply, Desi took his hand, her tiny fingers intertwined. Without another word, she led him to the river's edge, and together, they plunged into the refreshing waters. Their laughter echoed across the water, a joyous melody celebrating their newfound friendship. Suddenly, Desi stopped and waved her arms and legs, hovering in the water as she remembered Beauregard. Her eyes scanned the bank, and a smile illuminated her face as she watched her pet jumping after the fleeting seagulls. Refreshed, Alex helped Desi up the bulkhead onto the bank. Then, he followed her with the assistance of a mooring rope from a nearby cargo ship. As Alex escorted Desi back to the alley, the late afternoon sun cast mysterious shadows through the debris-strewn streets. The air was thick with the scent of dust carried by the southern breeze. Beauregard, ever vigilant, sniffed and pawed at the ruins, his nose leading him on a silent hunt for sustenance. Desi, illuminated by a hopeful smile, reached for Alex's hand. The touch of her small, calloused palm against his was comforting. Looking up at him, she asked with a mixture of sadness and wonder, "Will this war ever end? I miss my mother and father so much. I wish they were here." Her big blue eyes, filled with sorrow and hope, searched his face for answers. Alex, his heart heavy with shared longing, met her gaze. "I miss my ma and pa, too. I remember the good times in Immobile, the festivals, the trips to Dauphin Island, and the Mardi Gras parades." His voice, roughened by the dust and the weight of memory, trailed off as he recalled the joyous memories of those pre-war days. Then, as if snapping out of a trance, Alex became aware of Desi's slender frame beside him. "Are you hungry?" he asked, concern creasing his brow. Desi's face lit up with eagerness and a hint of hunger as she nodded vigorously. "Yes, I am. But where can we find something to eat?" Instantly, Alex pointed excitedly across the street. Beauregard had struck gold, digging into the remnants of a pastry shop. Crumbled muffins and cakes, their sweet scents now mingling with the dust, were revealed amidst the rubble. Both orphans dashed towards their four-legged companion with a shared cry of delight, narrowly avoiding a wagon of soldiers careening past. The trio wasted no time in satiating their hunger. They meticulously sifted through the debris, extracting treats from their earthly graves. The cakes, though dusty, were still soft and moist, and the muffins, though somewhat stale, were a welcome feast. They devoured the food, licking their fingers clean and relishing every mouthful. With their bellies full, Alex turned his attention to gathering supplies. He located a sturdy burlap sack and began filling it with a scavenger's delight: unbroken eggs, their shells a marvel of nature's engineering, a side of bacon, its fatty strips a promise of savory meals, a jar of hard candy, each piece a miniature work of art, and several bent cans of fruit, their contents no less delicious for the dents. Ever mindful of their circumstances, Desi suddenly cried out, "Stop, Alex. We can't just take all this. It's not right, we're stealing." Alex paused his intense gaze, meeting Desi's confused one. "No, we're not," he replied, his voice steady. "The good Lord said, 'I will help those who help themselves.' And that's what we're doing. We're helping ourselves." Desi's face was a picture of uncertainty as she scratched her head, her tangled curls wild around her face. "Oh," she said, her voice small. "I guess that sounds right." The sounds of other survivors, their voices filled with desperation and hope, began to fill the area. Alex, his sack now heavy with their findings, took his new companion's hand once more, and with Beauregard by their side, they made their way out of the rubble and back towards the alley. Desi's cough, her throat dry from the dusty pastries, prompted Alex to search for water. His keen eyes soon spotted a bent water pump, and he worked the handle until a steady stream of clear liquid flowed into a can he had found. Desi drank deeply, the liquid spilling out of both sides of her mouth, a delight to her parched mouth and throat. The sun bathed the scene in a warm, golden light as they returned to the alley. Desi's friends, a motley crew of survivors, greeted them with smiles and curious stares. Still, in Alex's hand, Desi felt a sense of belonging as she introduced her new friend to her small community. Joe is the only one missing, and Desi starts telling Joe's story. Like on cue, Beauregard started to bark and darted toward the alley entrance. Wagging his tail, he greeted the frail older man hobbling on his crutch and peg leg. His head was wrapped in a bandage, like an Egyptian mummy. Desi followed Beauregard, running up to Joe, almost knocking him down, and hugging him around the waist. Looking out from his bushy eyebrows, Joe scratched his scruffy beard, staring at Alex, wondering who this new person was in their world. It wasn't long before Joe and Alex became a team. Alex sat for hours listening to Joe's stories. Joe, who was not so handy, appreciated Alex's help. Alex became an integral part of Desi's world in the following days and weeks. With Joe's help, they crafted a cozy home for her, turning her wooden box into a haven amidst the wreckage. They built a storage area for her meager possessions and constructed a wash basin, sparing her the arduous journeys to the river. Lastly, they fashioned pine needles into stuffing for a quilt, providing Desi with a real bed, a luxury she hadn't known in years. When Joe departed to find work, Alex built himself a box next to Desi, symbolizing their growing friendship. Together, they worked side by side, infusing their corner of the world with color and life. Their laughter and stories wove a tapestry of hope, and their dreams for a better tomorrow sustained them through the long nights. Unbeknownst to them, their friendship would become a shining example of resilience and a testament to the power of human connection, even in the darkest of times.